and you can't get those answers from the bookkeeping that's been done by the bookkeeper you have. And you want to be mad and you want to say, hey, I have an accountant. Why isn't this being done for me the way I need it done? And there's a very good reason for that, which is the topic of this episode, why you don't want to have your tax accountant pick your bookkeeper. Because think about what you've done. Your tax accountant has one job for you, and that is at the end of the year to get your tax return filed. So they need to know what you spent in the whole year, and they need to know what you made in the whole year. They don't care what month you made it. They don't care how you made it. They just need to know what the total was for the whole year that you're filing the taxes for. Hi, I'm Pam Prior, and this is the Cash Flow Podcast, where we talk about everything money related in your business. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome back to Cash Flow. On this day I'm recording, it's a pretty exciting day for Bitcoin. So we're going to cover that in our What's News segment. And then we're going to talk about, I love the name of this beer, Frickin Hazer Beams IPA is the beer that's going to be our brews segment. And then for our hardcore financial topic, one of the things you've often heard me say is don't let your tax accountant pick your bookkeeper or be your bookkeeper. We're going to dive into that a little bit and tell you why that can cause a lot of harm, but how you can make it work for you. See you in a minute. In our brews section today, we're taking a look at Frickin Hazer Beams. I love the color of the can. I think it's just a gorgeous blue, and it looks like it's got these needle-nosed fish slicing their way through the name. So I'm going to have to figure out why the C reference. But the way the can reads is approachable, lush, and exotic as an IPA. So we're going to pour a little bit here and see what we think. Oh, I was showing my mic to pour. And there we go. That's what it looks like. It is a little hazy. It's a lot hazy, actually. I can't see through it at all. Making sure that you can see it. There we go. So it's a little hazy. Looks a little bit like a Belgian, a heavy Belgian, actually, when I look at it like that. Let me tell you a little bit about this brewery before I take a sip. So, this Frickin Hazer Beams, love the name, is by Rough Tail Brewing Company, which is, and the way they describe the whole brewery, which I love, is an absolute ill-tempered haze. And they brag about on their website, quite frankly, how they've done all of this non-conventionally. It started by two guys who met in a homebrew club back in 2012 and then decided, hey, we're going to have a brewery. And the really cool thing is they did this in Oklahoma City, home of one of my very favorite client, Cosmos Q Barbecue. And I'll tell you what, I'm guessing that this brew might go very nicely with some Cosmos Q barbecue sauce. So let me take a little sip and tell you what I think, and then I'll tell you what they officially say about it. Okay, so what I get is a lot. Wow, it's not anything I've tasted before, right? It's not a particular citrus that jumps out. It's very hoppy, I'll give you that. And I think the word I'd use is bitter. I think people would call it a little more bitter, which I happen to like. So unfortunately, bitter has a negative connotation. But in this case, it's really good because right after the bitter comes a lot of tingle and a really smooth feel that's almost creamy. So, yep, I really like that. Now let's see what the real beer people say about it. They say it's a pale ale, and it starts with a killer base of Pacific Gem hops, so hops from the West Coast, and pale and bready malts. And I think the bready malts may be what I'm having sort of suck the fruit taste out of it for me. But then they say it blows up with flavor with added experimental Sabro right after the boil. Now, I'm going to have to look up what Sabro is, and we're going to put that in the notes for the podcast so that you can know what Sabro is by the time you're listening to this.
Sabro, an aroma hop that is typically used in only late boil additions, including dry hopping. The Sabro hop has complex and distinct fruit and citrus aromas. It also has a unique blend of tangerine, coconut, tropical and stone fruit flavors underscored by hints of cedar and mint. Sabro.
So that goes in right after it's boiled, and the result is an unfiltered, which you could see when I held it up, hopped out bliss. I don't know that I'm at hopped out bliss. I still have a little bit of the bitter taste with me, but it's bursting with huge notes of coconut and pineapple and soft, pillowy mouthfeel. Yeah, so the soft, pillowy mouthfeel was definitely the creamy that I felt. I don't know that I got, maybe it is pineapple. Hang on. That was an excuse to take another sip. Pineapple. Yep, it's got pineapple in it. That's that weird sort of citrus that I couldn't explain. It wasn't like typical orange or lemon or lime. It's actually got a pineapple-y taste. The coconut, I gotta tell you, I don't get out of this. Okay, on my rating scale, so producer, I forget whether my rating scale is 1 to 5 or 1 to 10.
1 to 10, and we're calling it the PBKPI.
The PBKBI, which stands for something brilliant. KPI is Key Performance Indicator.
The
Pam's Beer KPI. There we go, the PBKBI on this one. I'm going to actually give it a 5. Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's a good IPA. I think people who like hazy IPAs would like it a lot. I'm more of a crisp. I like the crisp bite that comes and grabs you. Cool thing is, on our next episode, I believe, actually I don't know when it's going to be, but we're going to record one on some of its sister beers from the same brewery. We'll see if I have the same reaction. So there it is. Cheers. Happy frickin' Happy frickin' Hazer beams. Oh my God. Frickin' Hazer beams. Okay, and now for our What's News segment. It's a pretty important day for anybody who follows cryptocurrency, even remotely. If you know what Bitcoin is, you're going to know the day that I'm recording because of what I'm going to tell you. So quite excitingly, and I don't look at this during the day, I just happen to see a news article pop up, Bitcoin for the first time is starting to tease the price it was at an all-time high back in, I believe, 2021. So it's flirting right now with $69,000 as its price per Bitcoin. And just looking at the market in general, there are a lot of more traditional investors now saying things like, oh my God, it's a gamble. This is not something I'm familiar with. Most notably, Warren Buffett came out today and made a comment on actually something that happened 4 or 5 days ago as if it was current news. But he's basically saying, hey, people just are riding the market more like a gambling game than they are really investing anymore. And so I wanted to do a little research on this because I've come to learn, as you know, I've gotten this little hobby of cryptocurrency, and I've learned a lot about it over the last really 2.5 years, kind of starting with COVID, as a matter of fact. It became a hobby of mine. And I found an article today that I really want to share with you all in What's News that's an opinion piece by a guy by the name of Daniel Kuhn, who is on CoinDesk. And I'm not going to read it to you, but I do want to give you some of the highlights. And the question is, right now, Bitcoin is flying at like $69,000. And a lot of people who haven't been involved in Bitcoin are jumping in now at this high price. One of the things that's really important to understand has happened with the Bitcoin price is that just, I think maybe 3 weeks ago at the most, Bitcoin all of a sudden became available in something called an ETF for all of the investors like BlackRock and Fidelity and Merrill and all those people to actually now buy a sort of Bitcoin. Since that happened, they've had to purchase and have pushed $8 billion worth of Bitcoin into the market, which is what's making these prices rise. So it's really exciting that we're getting around this height of $69,000. But the big question is it going to stay there or is it going to crash? Because if you know a little bit about crypto, you know there was a crash back in 2022. And as a result, you're probably thinking same thing. This is a roller coaster ride and it makes no sense. But this guy, Daniel, points out a few really important points. And the main ones that he addresses are that, think about it. Remember when, right before crypto crashed at the Super Bowl, there were all sorts of celebrities talking about DeFi and cryptocurrency. I don't know if you remember, but all of them ended up basically being sued because they happened to be hooked up with the wrong things. If you look at what's happening now, there aren't any celebrities here right now. Nobody's out touting Bitcoin. They're not putting their reputation on the line. So they're not bringing in a host of people who really aren't investors to just throw their money at this thing. So that's an indicator that it's going to really stand up a little bit more than it has in the past. The other thing that's happening is that banks have figured out that they can make more interest investing in Bitcoin or Ethereum and then reinvesting it on DeFi than they ever realized in the past. So banks now have an interest in some of this funding or some of these tokens, which is also something that will help to support the price. As I mentioned before, too, we also have the major investors now are actually selling this to the daytime person who has a big investment company managing their retirement fund. So if you have an IRA or if you have an investor at Schwab or at Fidelity who manages your investments, the part of your fund that is at risk, because they always like to have, no matter how well diversified you are, that you always want to have a part of your portfolio be sort of at-risk money that you might not do well, but if it does, it's really going to blow things away. Like 1% of the portfolio, you want to look at this kind of a fund. So now all these big guys have actually bought into the fact that cryptocurrency is something they want to represent there. That's the second thing. The third thing is that a lot of the bad blood got flushed out of the system in the last couple of years. And again, even if you only peripherally watch what's happening in crypto, you know the name Sam Bankman-Fried, I'm guessing. And if you don't, just do one quick look up and you'll see that he's in jail. But him and 3 or 4 other characters I won't name did some really crappy stuff on the Web3, on decentralized finance. They've been swept out of the water. And truly, nobody knows this because the media doesn't cover it, but they had nothing to do with Bitcoin. So that's something else to just be aware of. The coverage that the media gives crypto is pretty well ill-informed, if not uninformed at all. So those are kind of the big 3 things that I think help really prop this price up. Now, this is not investment advice. This is just an exciting time if you are playing around in Bitcoin or Ethereum, even just on the periphery like I am, that it's kind of a fun time after, 3 years of down, 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 and then boring, 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 flat, flat, flat. We have this skyrocketing thing happening. And the thing that I would point out, not to argue with Warren Buffett, but to argue with Warren Buffett a little bit, is that it's a very different market than it was when it crashed before. And I think a lot more of the investment public is sensible now about how to do things. In fact, I'm going to tell my producer, I want to do a finance episode actually on investing in crypto, because it is one thing that entrepreneurs are starting to do. And I think we need to cover some real tips and tricks on how to do that safely, not, again, that it's investment advice. So that's the big news. I think we may hit an all-time high in Bitcoin today while I record this. And I'm glad I'm here with you when it happens. And here we are. It's time for the hardcore finance stuff. But I promise you this one's going to be fun, and I'm going to lead with a story. And normally what I do is tell you a story about one of my clients, right? I'll say, hey, so-and-so's story here. I changed the name to protect the innocent, but here's what happened. This particular story is the same across so many clients that I can't count them. So consider this one big conglomerated story and see if you can relate to this. If you're a business person or you started your own business, you're somewhere along the line of just opening the doors, figuring out what your idea is, to all the way down the road, you have employees, you're making tens of millions of dollars with profit, and you're getting ready to sell your business. You're somewhere in that spectrum, but I'll bet you're going to be able to recognize this story. And you probably think I'm talking about you if you're one of my clients. I promise you I'm not. And I told you when I told you this the first time, you are not the only one. But when we start out on our businesses, even if we do open a checking account to keep the information separate, let's assume we've done that because that's cool. And by the way, if you haven't, please do it. But we've got a separate checking account and separate credit card for our business, and we're just running our business. Off we go, we buy stuff, we get some money, we sell stuff, we get some more money, we spend more money. Oh, we go use some money from our personal account because there's not enough money there. We really just do what we have to do to get done. We're not thinking about the finances. In the back of my head, being a finance person, I might say, oh, at the end of the year, I'm going to have to figure all this stuff out. But here's the thing. If you don't make any money in that business in the first year, you may not even think about it at the end of the year. You get through year 1, you had a loss. Okay, cool. You move on to year 2, nothing changes. You're still using a couple credit cards, a little bit of your personal, a little bit of business. End of year 2 comes, another loss. Nothing really you have to worry about. You don't think about taxes. But year 3, man, your traction has hit. You have clients, you have revenue coming in. You've managed your expenses beautifully, whether you've scaled or not. You've really got a great business model now. You might be tired because it's all you, but you got money and you're making money. And it's not until you get to around, I don't know, January or February after that year that you go, oh shit, I made money. I need to file taxes on this. And then you might realize you don't have a tax accountant because you've always just filed your own tax return. And that's when you say, uh-oh, now I have a successful business. I've got to go find an accountant. And inevitably, when you say that, at that point, you mean, I have to go find a tax accountant, which is exactly right, because at that point, your top priority is to get your taxes paid. So the first thing he's going to do, or she's going to do, is send you a checklist of things they need to file your taxes. And you're going to look at that checklist and realize what it says. It says, tell me every dollar you spent and where you spent it on your business, and tell me every dollar you made on your business during the last year. And actually, they're going to say during the last 3 years. And you're going to go, oh, crap, I have to do that. And if you're like most of the people that I have an example of here, including myself, you're going to find a shoebox that's going to have a whole bunch of receipts in it. It'll have most of them, but not all of them. And you're going to have to go through your bank statement, and you're going to spend like a December or January day in hell answering that question. And you're going to swear to yourself, I will never do this again. Again, if you're a business owner that's in 3 or 4 years and had some profit, I know you're relating to this story. So never again, which is great. You'll say never again. So you'll say to the tax guy, thanks for doing my taxes. I have my beautiful tax return. I don't want to go through what I went through last year. What do I have to do? And your tax accountant rightly will say, you need a bookkeeper. You need somebody who's literally taking those transactions and booking them as you spend them, so that you can, at the end of the year, not have to go recreate 12 months worth of what you've done. If you're like me, I don't remember where I put my keys yesterday. I'm definitely not going to remember what I got at Donuts on January 4th of last year. So I know I like this idea of a bookkeeper. And what'll happen is I'll say, okay, who do you recommend, tax guy or tax gal? And they'll say either, hey, we do it ourselves, or, use this bookkeeper. They're great. We use them all the time. And you'll say yes, because all you know is you don't want to go through that hell of that day you spent with the receipt box again. You just couldn't tolerate it. So now you think, I've got a bookkeeper, I got a tax accountant, I'm in good shape. And on you go. Year 3, year 4, year 5, and everything hums along beautifully. Until you get to the year where one of two things happen. Either there's a bit of a crisis, and you need to kind of know what's going on at a deeper level. You need to understand your cash flow or your cash cycle, some of the other things we've talked about on this episode. Or you get a really great opportunity, and you're like, I don't know if I have enough money to do this. I don't know if my business operates in a way that lets me do this. And you can't get those answers from the bookkeeping that's been done by the bookkeeper you have. And you want to be mad, and you want to say, hey, I have an accountant. Why isn't this being done for me the way I need it done? And there's a very good reason for that, which is the topic of this episode, why you don't want to have your tax accountant pick your bookkeeper. Because think about what you've done. Your tax accountant has one job for you, and that is at the end of the year to get your tax return filed. So they need to know what you spent in the whole year, and they need to know what you made in the whole year. They don't care what month you made it. They don't care how you made it. They just need to know what the total was for the whole year that you're filing the taxes for. So when you say to a tax accountant, get me a bookkeeper so that I don't have to go through that hell again next year, he or she is going to say, okay, you need a bookkeeper who will close your books monthly or quarterly or in any particular way or any particular time frame, but in a way that gives me, the tax accountant, exactly what I need to file your taxes. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But know that there are a couple kinds of bookkeepers. There are the bookkeepers that do just that. They keep your books, they book the transactions, and they do it exactly and perfectly so that the tax accountant can file your tax returns at the end of the year. But If you get a bookkeeper who has something of a CFO type background or leadership, or has worked in corporate before they became a bookkeeper, or has done a little bit more than just getting the bookkeeping certification on QuickBooks or Xero, then what you've got in this other kind of bookkeeper is one that understands that in that data that's there in your books, what that represents is every dollar that comes and goes from your checking account or your credit card accounts. Okay? That's what it's doing. It's keeping track of those. And if you think about your entire company's financial story resides in those accounts. How much are you spending on your credit card, and how much cash is coming into and going out of your bank account? That's really important to you. That's not anything that the tax accounting bookkeeper really cares about. They care at the end of the year, how much money did you make? How much money did you spend? How much money was left over? But this bookkeeper that I'm talking about now that you really want to get for your business when you need to start to understand your business is the storyteller bookkeeper. And he or she is the one who's going to literally take that financial information that's sitting there in those bank accounts and turn it into a story. And it's going to be a story that can answer the questions you now have, like, when can I hire my next hire? What should my prices be? Am I paying too much for the things I buy? Do I have too many people on staff? Can I take on this new client? How quickly will this money be in the bank? All of the things that all of a sudden in years 5 and 6 and 7, or when you get a great opportunity, or when you're in a crisis, come up, you need a totally different kind of bookkeeper than the one who's just been slapping it in place for the tax accountant. So here's the thing. I'm actually going to tell you it's not irresolvable after I do one thing, which is check the Bitcoin price. Hang on. It is that day that Bitcoin might actually exceed its prior highs, and I want to see if that's happened yet. No, not yet. We're at 67,152 at this moment. Trying to get to the 60, I think it's 69,000 mark. We'll see what happens. It did go up as high as 68 today, so that's why I'm keeping my eye on it. And have a sip of beer. Here's to Bitcoin. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Getting better?
Still a 5. No, still a 5. Definitely, it's basically a pineapple that died. It's not even good pineapple. It's like a pineapple that died. Too much pineapple. Okay, so here's what you can do to get around the problem I just resolved and make sure that you get one bookkeeper that lasts you for life, or at least an understanding of how to ask for that bookkeeper. When you talk to a bookkeeper, when you interview a bookkeeper, I want you to do a couple things. I want you to, 3 things actually. One is I want you to make sure that they're listening to you. If they don't ask you about the story of your business, if they don't ask you how you started it, when you started it, why you started it, what your goals are, then you probably don't have the right person. That's more of an indication that they're going to be a technician, right? That they're going to literally put A in slot B just exactly like they're supposed to do, as opposed to the person that's going to take that information and bookkeep it in a way that tells your story. So that's number 1. We really want to make sure they're listening to you. What's number 2? Ask them a little bit about how often they close the books. Like close the books, let me rephrase that. Ask them how often they bring transactions into the books. What that means is, how often are they going out and looking at that bank account and that credit card and deciding, hey, there's a little more story to tell here. You want to understand that. And if they either look at you like you're crazy and say, I do it once a month, or they say, what do you mean by that? Then it's probably not somebody that's used to being a bookkeeper that crafts that story for you. Another really important thing, you've got decisions to make. You need to know more than, oh, that's how much I spent last year. And then finally, the third thing I would do to kind of check out and see which kind of bookkeeper this is I would say, do you keep tax books or business books? And that sounds like a weird question, right? Because nobody keeps 2 sets of books. But here's what I'll tell you. Anything that the kind of bookkeeper I'm talking about will do for you to make your numbers tell the story of your business is totally useful and acceptable by the tax accountant. The way these systems are set up today, literally no matter what my bookkeeper does in the books, as long as they've set things up right, the tax accountant has what they need. So don't even worry about that. Your bookkeeper can make any changes they want to your books, and your tax guy can still get what he needs. Not any, but creative ones that help tell the story. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is you can't, oh, I know where I was going with this. So the tax accountant can use whatever your storytelling bookkeeper creates, right? But your storybook can't be built or told from the work that a tax accountant bookkeeper is going to put together, because they're only putting together the basics, right? They put the foundation and the frame up, which you absolutely have to have. But the cool thing is, for the storyteller bookkeeper to do the same thing, to do what they need to do for you, they also have to put that same foundation and floor and supports up. So there's no risk of having a non-tax validated bookkeeper do your books. What you want to make sure of, and the thing I want to really drill home here, is a lot of people, because of the story that I told, and because you're so tired of that day you had to spend tearing receipts apart, and your tax accountant says the only way out of this is to get a bookkeeper, he or she is right, but don't necessarily take the bookkeeper the tax accountant recommends. Go out and talk to a few of them, and what you really want to get is a storyteller bookkeeper, somebody that's going to take all that information that's concentrated in those two accounts and explode it into a storybook or a painting for you, that when you look at it, you go, yeah, that's my business. And now I can look at it and see, oh, if I raise my prices, I'll be able to hire John on February 5th. If I sell 10 more of these, then I'll be able to expand in that new facility. You can start asking and answering those questions with a whole new level of confidence. But it all starts with the right kind of bookkeeper. Don't be upset. Don't yourself if you work your way through a tax accounting bookkeeper. But when somebody approaches you and says, hey, do you know what's going on in your books? Don't necessarily blame the tax bookkeeper if you're not getting what you want. They do a different job than what you really need to have handling your bookkeeping if you're going to be a long-term successful entrepreneur. That's it for this week. I wish you all a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see you here again next time. Cheers. I hope that video was helpful, and I hope you subscribe to my channel for more information on finances in your business.